Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn, Clark Gable and Bette Davis, Elizabeth Taylor and Marlon Brando, Gregory Peck and Vivien Leigh. What unites all these movie stars? Of course, the answer is obvious. They are all part of the golden age of Hollywood. Old Hollywood is synonymous with glitz, glamour, and sophistication, and this is largely due to his beautiful stars. But not everyone knows that in order to become successful, an actor or actress had to put up with many rules and restrictions set by film companies. The golden age of Hollywood is considered to be the time between the 1920s and the 1960s. For all these 4 decades, Hollywood has been governed by the studio system. Simply put, the Big Five studios controlled the entire film industry. These companies have created such stars as Marilyn Monroe, Judy Garland, Elizabeth Taylor, and many others. But not everything is so rosy. These same companies forced actresses and actors to sign the strictest contracts that allowed them to control not only the work of the stars, but also their personal lives. To begin with, the actors signed long-term contracts. Today, artists can work on one film in one studio, and then move to another and star in a new film. At the same time, film studios often looked for talented people themselves and signed contracts with them. The duration of contact ranged from 4 to 7 years. Having signed a contract with one studio, the actors were not allowed to work with other film companies. The studios themselves approved the actors' projects and provided them with roles in films. Sometimes this condition helped to make a career, but often it broke it. Because often they were the same type of roles that the audience once liked and the studios tried to squeeze as much as possible out of it. This was the case with Marilyn Monroe, who once played a stupid blonde in a musical and became a hostage to this role. Despite such a strict ban, if desired, the studio could lend its actor to other studios. For example, Elizabeth Taylor worked for MGM, and it is known that she took time off several times to work on more complex films, including such films as Giant, A Place in the Sun, and Suddenly last summer. By the way, a little more about the ban on filming for other film studios. I will not go far and take the above-mentioned film A Place in the Sun with Elizabeth Taylor. The director of the film believed that actress Gloria Grahame would be best suited for the role of Alice Tripp, one of the main characters in the film. He personally called the actress with an offer to star, but the owner of RKO, Howard Hughes, refused to let her go. In general, Audrey Totter was originally planned to take on this role, but she had a contract with MGM Studios, and she was not released either. The actors could not refuse the roles. Point. In the days of the studio system, giving up a role was considered a blatant offense. As a rule, the actors tried their best to avoid this, but if this happened, it led to serious consequences. Bette Davis was suspended from working at the Warner Brothers film studio for refusing roles. A similar story happened with Marilyn Monroe, who was considered one of the brightest stars of the 20th Century Fox film studio. According to the contract that she signed at the beginning of her career, and which has not changed for many years, she was not allowed to choose projects and colleagues with whom she would like to work. Marilyn was desperately trying to become a real actress, get rid of the role of a narrow-minded blonde, and act not only in comedies and musicals, but all her attempts were nipped in the bud by studio executive director Darryl Zanuck. For some reason, Zanuck had a personal antipathy to the actress and believed that she would bring the studio much more money if she starred in light comedies. As a result, when Marilyn refused to shoot in another musical, the studio froze her contract. Studios could easily destroy the careers of actors. When Louis Mayer, the co-founder of MGM, decided to break the contract with actor John Gilbert, he started rumors about the star and deliberately put him in bad movies. As a result, Gilbert's career went down the drain. At the request of the film studio, the actors were obliged to change their name. Many of the old Hollywood stars we know and love, Cary Grant, Kirk Douglas, Marilyn Monroe, Rita Hayworth, Judy Garland, the list can go on for a long time, use stage names chosen by studios. MGM even held a competition to choose a name for its new star, Lucille LeSueur. What was her name for the rest of her life? Joan Crawford. They say she hated that name. Women often had to change not only their name, but also their appearance to meet the requirements of the studio. In addition to simple hair coloring, and some young starlets had to have plastic surgery, the studios went to great lengths to make their new starlets in demand. The actresses had to obey any decision of the studio. For example, in order to become the brilliant Rita Hayworth, an ordinary pretty girl, Margarita Carmen Cancino had to undergo several transformations, starting from her name and ending with a complete transformation that erased all traces of her ethnicity. The studio put her on a diet and forced her to have plastic surgery, including painful procedures to change her hairline. The actors were required to take acting lessons. Sometimes studios saw potential in an actor or actress even before they could show their acting abilities. So it was common for aspiring stars who had already signed contracts with major studios to attend acting classes. In addition to acting, actors and actresses took vocal lessons. After signing a contract with Warner Brothers Studio, Lauren Bacall took a series of vocal lessons. It is thanks to these activities that the actress has a beautiful low voice. This voice made her famous and distinguished her from other actresses. At first, the actors were cast in minor roles. Before sculpting an actor or actress into a new Hollywood star, studios tested them in small supporting roles to see how they did. That's how Sharon Tate ended up in the TV series Hillbilly from Beverly Hills, and Ava Gardner in the movie Hitler's Mad Men. The image of each actress was carefully selected, and she was obliged to support it. They were mostly types like Pretty Girl Next Door or Sex Bomb. Studios went to great lengths to make the actresses like the audience, sometimes even coming up with fake backstories for their starlets. Looks were everything. The studios required their actresses to always be ready for photography. Also, the stars were required to maintain weight. All this was included in the contracts. Women were not supposed to wear trousers. Katharine Hepburn showed character and resisted this recommendation. And when one of the studio's costumers forced her to take off her trousers, she walked around the set in her underwear, refusing to get dressed. Men were supposed to behave like gentlemen. The actors were also instructed to follow the rules of the studio. It was expected that they would always be a symbol of gallantry. Promiscuous behavior, divorces, any problems with the law could seriously affect their careers. The actors had to go along with the press. In addition to many other duties, the movie stars of old Hollywood had to serve the press. Stage photo shoots were often arranged in which movie stars had to look flawless and radiate sparkle and glamour. Studios often planned the personal lives of actors. Fictitious dating of the stars was a great way to attract the attention of the audience to new films. At the request of MGM Studios to promote the film Children in Armor, Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland pretended to be a couple in love, although in real life Rooney was a famous playboy. And sometimes the studios went even further and arranged marriages. This was especially true for non-traditional actors. The same Rock Hudson was forced to marry his agent's secretary Phyllis Gates. But sometimes the studios forbade marriage unions. When Jean Harlow wanted to marry William Powell, MGM Studio refused her, saying that it would lower her attractiveness in the eyes of the audience. As an argument, she was given a moral clause from the contract she signed. Also, there were often clauses in contracts prohibiting having children. The actresses knew that pregnancy was against the rules of most studios, and as a result, some women had abortions to avoid punishment. MGM had all sorts of penalties if their stars suddenly had children. Gardner wrote in her autobiography, Ava, My Story. But there were also some loopholes. Joan Crawford adopted a girl, and this allowed her not to break away from filming. And Loretta Young kept her pregnancy and childbirth a secret from the public, and later adopted her biological daughter Judy Lewis, whose father was Clark Gable. The promotion of films was the main task. The stars did their best to make the audience pay attention to their films. For example, Elizabeth Taylor's wedding to Conrad Hilton was a highly publicized event, and it was conveniently timed to coincide with the release of Taylor's new film, Father of the Bride. Moreover, the studio paid for a luxurious celebration. The studios could refuse the actors a vacation. In 1941, Judy Garland married composer David Rose without the approval of her MGM studio. Do you know what they did? They just made her go back to work the day after the wedding. no honeymoon. Actresses were forbidden to get fat. They were obliged to maintain a slim figure. Marlon Dietrich was one of the first movie stars who was told to lose weight. Judy Garland was still a child when she became a star. But that didn't stop the studio from encouraging her to smoke to curb her growing child's appetite. If celebrities gained even a little extra weight, the studios forced them to sit on strict diets. The diet that Marlene Dietrich followed included only broth, cottage cheese, and a piece of toast. Fitness classes were strongly encouraged. Actresses often trained to keep fit. Although at that time it was not customary to talk about it. Katharine Hepburn loved tennis and swimming, while Marilyn Monroe was one of the first actresses to regularly exercise with free weights. Child actors worked no less than adults. Minimal child labor laws and strict contracts allowed studios to promote child stars at breakneck speed. But these children worked no less than their adult colleagues. Judy Garland worked 6 days a week, sometimes for 18 hours. To make her feel fit and lose weight, she was stuffed with invigorating pills, and when she couldn't sleep at night, they gave her sleeping pills. And 4 hours later, they woke us up and gave us invigorating pills again so that we would wake up and work on, Garland said. She used the pills throughout the filming of The Wizard of Oz. They were severely punished for sick days. After MGM itself hooked Judy Garland on invigorating pills, she had to fight addiction. She took 16 days off sick while working on Meet Me in St. Louis. All the filming delays due to her absence were paid out of her salary, which at one point reached $100,000. Even the kids knew not to waste studio time. Shirley Temple learned from a young age that you should never be unprofessional on set. Time is money. Wasted time means wasted money, and wasted money means problems, she wrote in her book, Child Star. The actors had to use the services of studio assistants. Studios often assigned their actors special assistants who took care of the stars, but they were essentially acting as spies. Judy Garland was devastated when she found out that her own babysitter had betrayed her. It was unforgivable to tarnish a reputation. As studios sought to present their actors and actresses in the best possible light, rumors or scandals could put careers at risk. Actress Clara Bow was one of the most famous women in the 1920s, but then there were rumors of her promiscuity, and Paramount broke the contract with her. Both actors and studios had to adhere to the production code. Since 1934, there has been a strict Hays Code that censored films. Actors and studios had to comply with established requirements that forbade swearing and much more. Kissing on the screen was strictly regulated. Some of the rules put forward by the censors concerned kissing on the screen. They weren't supposed to look too lusty, which meant they couldn't last longer than 3 seconds.